Hi, this is the how-to video for the Build a Quilt single 8-point star. The 8-point star is a very traditional, very simple block to make and one that you absolutely have to have in your Build a Quilt repertoire because you can make a whole quilt out of different stars, or you can add this into any quilt when you need to make a star. This particular pattern, as it says in your written material, comes as a 6x6, a 10x10, or a 12x12 finished block for you. And here is our single star. So this 8-point star is where the entire star is just one color. So the other nice thing about this block is really 2 fabrics is all you're going to need. We'll talk about that some more in a moment. Or if you made this as a quilt, you could choose one background color and then choose all different colors for your stars. That would be lovely as well. Okay, let me set that down. Now, along with all of your digital files, you'll also receive the printout version. I'm sorry, that's getting, hang on just a second. Let me. Kind of lowering that light just a little bit so it doesn't glare. So here is the written information. Well, it's going to glare either way, I guess. Your written pattern, you can print it. You can look at it on your computer or on your tablet or iPad. And then on the inside, now you'll have to excuse my color on here. My machine was running out of color, and so it's a little streaked. But you will need, or you will be making 3 specific pieces: the large square, the small square, and the flying geese unit. Give me just 1 second. I know what I'm going to do here. I'm going to turn that light off. There we go. And now things should be better. Let's try that again. There we go. You're going to be making a large square, 4 small squares, and 4 flying geese units. Then your next page is all about general supplies: thread, needle, stabilizer, snips, things like that. And then we come to our fabric sheet. And for that, I'm actually going to flip that light back on, and we're going to flip the camera over. Here we go. So in this, your fabric sheet shows you have a fabric A and a fabric B. Your fabric B is going to be the color fabric that is going to create the star, and fabric A is basically your background color. And when I was choosing my colors, I decided basically to choose something with a little bit of an autumn colorway. Now, I could have made the lighter color the background and made the star the darker, but I really liked how it turned out. I think the star pops more when I use the darker as the background. However, if I made a whole quilt of these, if I were going to make it as a summer quilt, I might use a white for my fabric A background color, and then do all kinds of colors for my stars. That would be a beautiful, stunning summer quilt. Or if you wanted, you could do it for the holidays and do greens and reds. Say maybe a green in the background, reds for your stars, or if you're going to do it maybe for Hanukkah, white or silver in the background, or silver for the stars, blue for the background. Anything like that would be truly gorgeous. So that is the fabric. You only need 2, and you don't, for a single block, you don't really need much. I was able to get away with about half of fat quarter for my whole block of each color, and I had plenty left over. Now we're going to talk about the placement. This is our cut and placement. This is going to tell you that this information, you're going to choose the size of the finished block. And in here, it will tell you if you're making a 6-inch star, then you cut this size. If you're doing the 10, you'll cut this size, 12, this size. And that will tell you for each piece. So when it says 3, it is actually talking about the body, and it will also give the information for the wings of the flying geese unit, okay? So right here, this whole flying geese unit, is piece 3, but it will be broken down to body and wings so that it's easy for you to figure out which fabric you're using. And then 2 are for the corners, and piece 1 is our center. And all of that information is just on one sheet this time, okay? And then in our next video, let me turn that off and come back to our, there we go. In our next video segment, there will be the how-to video for doing the squares. It's going to show you one square, but it will be the same whether you're doing the small or the large. And then there will be another video segment for the flying geese unit. Then there is going to be the layout video, and your layout information is in here, just like it's the next page. You're also going to get your coloring sheet to kind of help you figure out your fabric that you want, and then you get some more general information and instruction. That is the printable or your written instruction pieces for the pattern. So next is the demonstrations, then the layout, and the instructions, then the layout, and then there's a small video clip on how to stitch these together. And then I'll be back for the finish here in just a moment.
Okay, so here we are at the machine, and we're going to be doing the square. Now, you're going to say, I know, why would we just stitch one piece down on the stabilizer and when we could just cut it and sew it? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Part of the technique of piecing in the hoop is to give quilters who have never quilted and pieced before some guidelines to help them with final sewing, and to give all of us the ability to sew our quilt together without having to have a 1/4 inch foot on our sewing machine, without having to worry about accuracy when we're doing that, but without, even though we're not worrying about accuracy because all of our seam lines and things are built in, it's actually helping us to be more consistent. And consistency in our quilting is what makes our quilts really so beautiful. You know, I like to say about quilting, you can do anything you want in quilting, and don't let someone scream at you if you have like one little point that isn't exact. Perfect is the killer of joy in quilting, I think. I don't recommend you ever trying to be perfect, but what this does is helps you to be consistent so that you get everything just as it should be, and your project will come together nicely. But you won't have to worry about, oh, is my 1/4 inch a good 1/4 inch, a scant 1/4 inch? I've been quilting for over 50 years, and this really is going to help you with all that consistency without having to worry about it. And it gives you another thing as well. It gives you a final box so that you have that stitch guide when you go to stitch your squares together. So I'll show you more of that when we do our trimming. So here we are, we're all set up for our stitch out again. Now the square really only has two pieces. We're going to do our border just like we've done before. I've done everything on this wash away stabilizer, and I will admit this one is by far the easiest and fastest. In fact, according to my machine here, at 700 stitches a minute, this is all stitched out in a minute or less, so pretty quick. Now let's speak about speed for a little bit. I always recommend that you don't piece above 700 stitches per minute. You can do your embroidery that way and all, but quilting is not about speed. And whenever we go and start to worry about speed, high speeds, that's when we end up with more mistakes, even in this process. So I say don't go above 700 stitches a minute on your machine speed. If your machine doesn't even go that high, good. That's good. Usually I do 600 to 700 stitches a minute on my machine. I put my little bit of glue there. Now I'm going to lay my square of fabric down, and I can kind of feel where my border is. Okay, it's not exactly even on all sides, but it doesn't matter. I have plenty of fabric there for trimming. Now, my second and my last piece, because I don't really have to do that basting or that stitched out border again because it's really doing it for me now. I am just going to stitch this down. This is my final stitch step for doing my square. So now all of my squares are going to be exactly the same size. That's the consistency thing, not only with your seams, but when you cut. A lot of times, oh, we think we cut everything right. And if you've been a quilter in more traditional ways, you know what I mean when I say squaring up a square. You never have to square up when you piece in the hoop. It's really nice not to have to do that. So this one is done just like that. So our square is finished. Now, we're going to go over under my other camera and we're going to talk about trimming these out, and then we'll be ready for our last little bit of our talk here on our how-to video for Build a Quilt in the Hoop Block Basics Set 1. Okay, here we are at my machine. Now I'm using a Brother, but whatever machine you're using, you've loaded your file with your either a USB stick, or your machine might allow you to do it via Bluetooth or a wire, whatever you use. Let's just talk real quickly about fabric prep. It's really important to prep your fabric in advance. So one, it's a more efficient process for you. So here for my flying geese unit, I have my rectangle and I have my 2 triangles. Now, how did I get these 2 perfect triangles? You're told in the instructions to cut a square, and then this is one of those times when you're told to subcut. And to subcut these squares, you're going to cut from diagonal point to diagonal point with your ruler on your cutting mat. And when you do that, you get your 2 triangles, and then you have the perfect 2 pieces. So that's what is meant by subcutting. Now, you can see I keep a little basket with my tools, the ones that we just talked about, right here next to my machine. So they're all in one place. They're not rolling around on me. Today, I'm going to be using black thread so that you can see it. However, my favorite thread is 0184 by Isacord. It's a light dove gray. It's actually called Pearl, but it's the perfect color for piecing. It won't show through. You won't get shadows from it. If when you sew them together, you see a little bit of it, it's going to blend in with your fabric. It's not going to be any kind of a problem. But today I'm going to be using black so that you can see it. And I have my hoop all set up with my wash away stabilizer. And I am going to link my stabilizer video at the end of this video for you, because it's really important to use wash away. Other in the hoop type quilting systems will use a poly mesh, and that's okay, but there is a real reason as a quilter we want to use a wash away, and that's all in the video for you. So I will link that at the end of this how-to video. So now I've placed my hoop, and I'm going to start with step 1, machine step 1, and that's what it will say in your instructions. They will call these machine steps. It's stitching out. Now, machine step 1 and machine step 2 on your flying geese unit is stitched directly onto your stabilizer. What it is giving you is an outline of the piece, and it's giving you a placement line. Step 2 gives you the placement line for placing your first piece of fabric. So here we go on number 2. Excuse me. Now, regarding your fabric, I give you really generous cut sizes because we have to make sure to have enough to come over our border line so that we can trim it at the end. And I don't want you ever, when you flip your fabric, to be in a scenario where you don't have enough for the flip. So I'm going to remove my hoop a little bit right here so you can see it. Now this is the perfect time for the next step, which is machine step 3, to place a little of your glue stick right here in that center triangle. And then place your first fabric, just like it says in the instruction. First pieces of fabric are always laid right side up. Now that's plenty of fabric, and you'll see that here in a second. Like I said, my cut sizes for you are generous, so that you don't end up, having problems on your edges and your flipping. So now this is machine step 3. And it is tacking down our fabric number 1. And you'll see that in your instructions. Now, in the instructions, it's going to tell you, we need to remove, to trim along this edge and along this edge. Don't trim beyond the boundary here, because we'll trim that at the end when we trim the whole piece out of the stabilizer. Don't trim above the point of the triangle, because again, that's the outside of your overall piece, and you want to be able to trim that later. So let's lay this on a flat surface, and let me adjust down my camera. There we go. Now you can see it. I've got my scissors, and I'm going to trim roughly a 1/4 inch here and a 1/4 inch here. I just eyeball it. I don't mark it. I don't put a ruler down and mark it or anything like that. If you feel more comfortable, you can, but really you're just trying to eyeball that. And I've left all of that up at the top over the border, and I'm going to do that again over here. I'm going to leave plenty above for trimming later. And I'm just trimming this right off. There you go. So now I'm going to have enough when I stitch across this later. I'm going to have enough of this up here to trim off, and I'll have plenty down here as well. All right, your next part of your instruction says to lay piece number 2 right side down on piece number 1. So second and subsequent pieces always get laid right side down, just like that. Easy, right? Now we'll place this back into the machine. And let me bring this back up a little. There we go. And we're going to do machine step number 4. And I'll just hold my stabilizer down there a little bit so you can see it. Now, the next step is number 4, which says to flip fabric B, this is fabric B, into space 2 and stitch machine step 5. I'm going to put a little bit of glue right there in space number 2, and now I'm going to flip my fabric. And this is when you can use your seam roller to kind of give that a little press, or you can use your fingers, either way. And now machine step number 5. And I just kind of, as it's working, sometimes I just kind of like let my fingers guide it a little bit, but please keep your fingers well away from the needle and the mechanism. Now on this one, there's no need to do any trimming at all, because all of your excess fabric is outside the outer boundary box, and that will be trimmed later. Then we're on to our next step, which is number 5 in the instructions. And this is piece number 3. And again, it's your other triangle. So it's just like we did the last one. We're going to place it right side down, but on the other side this time. There we go. And now we're going to do machine step 6. And you're going to get a perfect flying geese unit every time you do this. And flying geese in the more traditional patchwork process can be a little bit complicated. There's measuring and things you have to do. With this, it's easy peasy. Now I flipped that, I put a little glue in there, and now we're going to do machine step 7, which is just going to tack it down here on the other side. And I'm just going to kind of just like petting it a little bit to keep it flat. The glue will hold it there though. Okay, so now we're ready for our very last step, which is machine step 8. But I want to talk to you really quickly because this is where you would use tape to tape down where your fabric comes together. And that will allow you, let's move our camera down, that will allow you, your foot, not to get caught on the fabric and flip it over and end up causing trouble. So what I do is I take a piece of my embroidery tape, I tape it down, I give that a little rip there. So that's one section. And I have 3 joining areas on the flying geese unit at the top peak and in the bottom 2 corners. So I have those taped. Now my foot, when it's going around to do our boundary box, which becomes our guidelines for sewing our segments together, it's not going to get hit. Let me see if we can move our machine a little bit closer. There you go. I think that's a little bit better. I had a little bit far away. Now we're going to stitch down the final machine step, which is machine step 8, and you will have created your first flying geese unit on your embroidery machine. See how simple it was? Just so you know, I'm using 700 stitches per minute, and if I were just doing this and not talking, my machine says it takes this 2 minutes to stitch out. So really quick and easy. Okay, now we can remove this. Now you'll want to remove your tape, and then you'll take the whole thing out of your hoop, and then we're going to trim these, and we'll trim all 3 of our demonstrated segment pieces at one time. So I'm not going to do that here. And now we are ready. We finished our flying geese unit, super simple, and we are ready to move on to our split rail block.
Okay, everybody, we're back here in the studio, and this portion of our video is all about the layout of the 8-pointed star. Now, the 8-pointed star layout is a very traditional layout, a very easy layout. It's basically the 3-row layout that we do in so many blocks, especially with Build a Quilt. So let's go ahead and flip over the camera. There we go. So here is our block all blown out, right? So here is our large square. Here are our 4 small squares. And of course, our 4 flying geese units are in what I call the north, south, east, and west positions, okay? So very easy. And you will see in your pattern that it will show you this top one is row 1. Middle is row 2, and the bottom is row 3. So you're going to bring in these 2 solid blocks and sew them onto your flying geese unit. Then you will take your larger square and sew the 2 flying geese units onto that side. And then you're going to do the same thing on the bottom. Take the 2 small squares and put them onto the flying geese unit. Then you're going to attach section 1 and section 2 together. And you can see right now we're getting our star. And then you're going to take row 3 and put it onto what we're now calling this section A. And you're going to attach row 3 to section A. And there you have your 8-pointed star. Okay, super easy. Let's just blow this back out again so you can see it one more time. There are all of our pieces, of which there are 9, which makes the 3-row method of putting it together really simple. You're going to put row 1 together, then you're going to put row 2 together, and then row 3, You're going to add row 1 and row 2 together, making what we call section A. And then you're going to take row 3 and add it to section A. And there you get your star. Okay, let's move on to the next part of our video.
Hi everybody, so this is Diana and I'm here at my sewing machine to show you how to sew your pieces together without getting that stitch line to show. Now you can see here I just have two little half square triangles. I've used the pin method up here at the point to make sure they're lined up, and I just have one clip here. Now what I do first is when I put this in my machine, I get my needle right to where the line would be, right on that stitch line, okay? Then I come over to my machine's tools and I take my width down by 1, and that's all. Now I'm going to put it back up, and I'm going to take you back over to here and let you see that. Okay, so watch the needle, how that moves. I'm going to move it now. See how it just moved one place to the inside, or I guess as you're looking at it, it would be to the left. That would be to the inside. Now I'm going to place my needle down, and I can go ahead and remove my clip because this is a small piece, and I can sew right down, and I have my stitch length at 1.8, and you can see now that I've already done a few stitches, it is still right one click in. It's not directly on top of it, and so I should, when I'm done, be able to finish and not have that black line sewn, and you just follow it all the way down. Now I'm going to cut my thread and bring it out, and I will open this up and bring it right back over so you can see it. So there it is, opened up. Now you might see a little of the black in this case because I used that marker, but when I'm just going to open up my seam in the back and hold it open for you. But you can see when I hold it open, that's just a little piece of thread that I can pull out of there. That's there. That's gone. And now you don't see it at all. You don't see any of the black thread, which I used for demonstration purposes, but you don't see any of my original embroidery thread from making the patchwork itself. And that is just by moving that needle one space and one space only. And again, I always stitch these with a 1.8 or a 2.0 stitch length so that it really holds these together when you go and open them up. And when I open it up here, you can see the line all the way down on both sides, and that's what you should be able to do. So I hope that you found that helpful. That was a great question. Thank you so much for asking that. And now we'll move on with the rest of the Q&A for today.
All right, everybody. How easy was that to make the 8-point star? Really, it is such a useful block. I know that we make lots of star blocks here at Build a Quilt because star blocks are so indicative of patchwork quilting, and everybody loves them. But I really wanted you to have this single star block in your collection. And we're going to be using this block in an upcoming quilt that we're going to be making. We're going to be doing the 6-inch size block, but you'll see how that works out when we get to that point, because you'll also need one of our other blocks as well. But all of that information is coming. And to find out about that, you'll want to join us on Wednesday nights at our Wednesday Workshop Live, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time here at Build a Quilt on YouTube to get all of that information. In fact, our October 2nd live is when I kind of break that general information down for you. And then there is more to come as well. So stay tuned. Subscribe, like, and share the videos. And once you subscribe, then you're going to get updated whenever we put out new information about this new quilt that we're going to be doing. And then, of course, when you like and share and subscribe, that's how we've built this group to be over 500,000 subscribers, which just blows me away. And I love being with each and every one of you. So thank you all so very much. If you need to contact me, you can do that at support@sewuncommon.com. I answer your emails pretty quickly. Unless it's late at night, then it might be the next morning. But if I can, I try to answer them right when they come in. And to at least tell you, I have your email, I'm checking into it for you, whatever I need to do. And then also, you've already purchased this pattern, but over at our website, mybuildaquilt.com, you can also subscribe to the website. That way you also get updates when I put out new information that doesn't necessarily come out through YouTube first, and you get notified when my blog posts, and that's of course where all of our great patterns are. So give those a look and see if there's anything else you'd like to try your hand at. And until next time, everybody, thank you so much for joining me for how to make the 8-point star the Build a Quilt way. And until next time, quilt life beautiful.